Imagine walking into a room where the paintings don't just hang on the walls. They watch, glancing at you in a way that makes the back of your neck tingle. But what happens when they do more than just watch? What if a painting could reach out and take its revenge? Welcome to the Nightside Archive, where the corners of reality blur and whispers take form. Tonight, we fall into the story of the Deathly Brush, the night of the painter's revenge. Let me paint this picture for you. Our story starts in the sleepy village of Kwood. James Harcourt was a local artist, if you could even call him that. His work wasn't prized. He wasn't invited to exhibitions. The few pieces he sold ended up in dusty cafes or thrift shops. But there's one painting, hidden in his damp studio, that no one had ever seen. Not until the night it all went terribly wrong. You see, James had spent months on this one piece. Obsessed. Obsessed like a man enchanted by some unseen force. He barely slept, murmuring to himself as his brush scraped the canvas well past midnight. Neighbors said strange sounds came from his studio, low, guttural murmurs, and something else, a scraping sound, like nails dragged on slate. As the clock struck 2 a.m. on the night of the unveiling, James finished the piece. He stood back, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and stared. What stared back wasn't merely a painting. At least, that's how he described it in the note they found later. He called it alive, alive and watching. And then, nobody heard from James for 2 entire days. On the 3rd day, a neighbor noticed an overpowering stench seeping from his studio. Thinking something had died, they forced the door. What they found sent shivers through that quaint little village for years to come. James was gone, but every wall of his studio was covered in something unsettling. Words scribbled in black paint, smudged and streaked as though by frantic hands. They read one phrase over and over. "I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have looked." In the center of the room, the painting stood on its easel. Blood-red hues, smeared violently across the canvas, formed a grotesque face. It seemed to scream, its expression so lifelike it made even hardened police officers step back. No one dared touch it, not even to move it. Yet it didn't stay in the studio for long. Against warnings, the landlord sold it to clear James's debts. And so, the painting found its way into the home of Margaret Vance, a socialite with a taste for the macabre. She adored the unsettling work, or at least, she pretended to, showing it off at parties where nervous laughter hung in the air like cigarette smoke. But Margaret's fascination was short-lived. Guests started refusing her invitations. They said the painting's eyes, yes, eyes, followed them. Margaret scoffed at the paranoia until the night she heard the scrape, the same sound James's neighbors reported. It woke her at 1:47 a.m., sharp, rhythmic scraping coming from her parlor where the painting hung. Enraged, she stormed downstairs, convinced it was an intruder. But the room was empty, empty but freezing cold. And there it was, the painting, on the floor, eerily upright, as if someone, or something, had moved it. The next morning, Margaret called an art appraiser to remove it, intending to sell it to the highest bidder. The man who arrived noted something unusual he discovered after examining the back of the canvas. Faint, reddish stains around the frame. Margaret dismissed it as rust, but the appraiser muttered, "This doesn't look like rust. It smells metallic." That evening, Margaret decided to move the painting herself before the buyer arrived. But as soon as she touched the frame, an audible whisper brushed her ear. "Closer." She recoiled, leaving the painting untouched, and bolted the room shut. Yet by morning, she was found in her hallway. Her body slumped unnaturally, one hand raised as if to ward something off. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest, but the local papers fed on the sensational notion that the painting had been cursed. No investigators could locate the piece after that. The buyer claimed it never arrived at his gallery. The story didn't end there. Decades passed before the painting emerged again, this time in an obscure estate auction. Rumor has it a man named Peter Kerrigan bought it, smuggling the eerie masterpiece into his basement studio, determined to study its origins for his book on haunted art. Peter set up surveillance cameras, planning to record any phenomena. Within the first 72 hours, nothing happened. Nothing moved. The painting, a grotesque, screaming face, alive with texture and agony, just hung there. Then, late one night, the basement camera failed. When Peter reviewed the footage, only static greeted him after 2 a.m. With dread prickling his skin, Peter ventured into the basement to investigate. It was there that neighbors heard his scream, raw, guttural, unlike any sound he had ever made before. The scream stopped abruptly. The police came hours later to find the basement door ajar and a tableau of chaos. Papers scattered, a toppled easel, and Peter gone. Vanished. Or so it seemed, until careful inspection revealed something far more chilling. His face, distorted and anguished, was now part of the painting. The eyes locked viewers into shivers, the lips frozen mid-silent scream. People who look closely at the painting today often describe seeing shadows flicker at the edges of the frame. A soft scraping noise sometimes fills the air when no one moves. And always, there's that dreadful sense that it's watching, waiting, choosing its next victim. So tell me, would you dare stand in the same room as it? Or perhaps you've already seen it, without even knowing just what was staring back at you.